What if I told you that building a stronger, more innovative society all starts with rethinking a single word? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea that connects disability rights directly to community development. And as you'll see, this isn't just about doing good, it's about unlocking the full potential of everyone around us. Okay, so first things first, to really get this, we have to challenge our own assumptions, because the modern way of understanding disability has almost nothing to do with an individual's limitations. It's about something way bigger, and honestly, it changes everything. So let me ask you, why is this date, December 3rd, such a big deal? Well, it's the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. But look, it's so much more than just a day on the calendar. Think of it as a global call to action, a day to really rally support for a world that includes everyone. And that all starts with understanding.
Now look at this. This simple equation is the key to the whole thing. The modern understanding isn't about the person's impairment. It's about what happens when that person runs into a barrier in their environment. See? A person with an impairment plus a barrier, that equals disability. This completely shifts our focus. The problem isn't the person. The problem is the barrier.
Okay, so if the barriers are the real problem here, what are we actually talking about? What do they look like in the real world? Let's break down the three main types. They basically fall into three big categories. First, you've got the physical barriers, the stuff you can see, like a building with no ramp. Simple enough. Then you've got the attitudinal barriers. These are invisible, but they are so powerful. We're talking about stereotypes, prejudice, stigma. And finally, you have systemic barriers. These are the discriminatory rules and policies that are just woven right into the fabric of our society. Put them all together, and they create massive exclusion.
You know, understanding what the barriers are is one thing, but seeing their impact, that's when you really feel the urgency. So let's take a look at the sheer scale of this exclusion.
This funnel here does a great job of showing how a massive global issue becomes a very local reality. Globally, we're talking about 1.3 times billion people with a disability. That's 16% of everyone on Earth. But watch how that number drills down to 10 million in Ethiopia, 2 million in just the Oromia region, and finally, to over 6,500 people in just one zone. This isn't some abstract statistic anymore, is it? These are our neighbors.
So what's the real-world impact of all these barriers? Well, the numbers are just staggering. I want you to let this one sink in. A full 96% of persons with disabilities face major economic barriers. That's nearly everyone, basically locked out of the chance to earn a decent living. And it doesn't stop with money. 70%. That's 7 out of 10 people who face huge barriers just trying to access knowledge and information. Think about that for a second. The basic tools you need to learn, to grow, to participate, they're just out of reach for most people. And this one is genuinely shocking. Nearly half, 46%, are excluded from community decision-making. This means that when the most important decisions are being made about their communities, about their own lives, their voices are completely silenced. So when you put these numbers together, you see the pattern, right? This is not about a few isolated incidents. What we're looking at is a systemic exclusion that prevents a huge part of the population from having any real role in the life of their community. But, and this is a big but, here's where the story takes a turn. Because fixing this isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. It turns out that inclusion is an incredibly powerful engine for development. So what are we even talking about when we say inclusive development? It's a simple idea, but it's profound. It just means making sure that all marginalized people, including persons with disabilities, are active participants in development, and that they benefit from it too. Put simply, it means nobody gets left behind. And this image of these gears illustrates the dynamic perfectly. It really is a virtuous cycle. When you invest in inclusion, you unlock all these new ideas and opportunities. This fuels economic growth and builds stronger partnerships. And that growth, in turn, gives you more resources to invest right back into inclusion. See? The gears all turn together, pushing the whole society forward. That all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually make it happen on the ground? Well, fortunately, there's a pretty clear blueprint for turning these ideas into action. It all starts with 4 foundational principles, and each one is basically a barrier buster. First, you have education to smash through the knowledge barriers. Second is opportunity to break down those economic barriers. Third, accessibility to tear down the physical ones. And finally, the bedrock of it all, respect. That's how you dismantle those attitudinal barriers of prejudice and stigma. So how do you put those principles into practice? Through 4 key activities. You raise awareness, which fosters respect. You facilitate new opportunities for people to work. You improve physical accessibility. And, this is so important, you organize associations to empower people with disabilities so they can advocate for themselves. That's the blueprint in action. So the big question is, does this blueprint actually work? Let's look at the tangible results we're seeing right now. This is where the theory gets real. Take a look at this number, 36. That is not just a number. That is 36 new associations for persons with disabilities that have been established through this work. 36 new platforms for advocacy. 36 new communities of support. 36 new engines of empowerment. And these photos, they show us that this isn't just some abstract figure. These are the real local offices for these new associations. Look at these signs. Each one of them represents a new hub of activity, a new voice for inclusion, a new center of power for a community that, for too long, was silenced. This is what progress on the ground actually looks like. And this really brings us to the core message of this whole explainer. Disability inclusion is a group effort. It's a shared responsibility. And crucially, it has a shared benefit. When people with disabilities are empowered to participate, the entire community becomes stronger, more resilient, and way more innovative. So as we wrap this up, the real question isn't about some distant policy or program. It's actually a question for each and every one of us. In our communities, in our workplaces, in our own attitudes. What role can you play in removing a